for Joel Williams and against Delroy, but she says, well, they're just going to have to work with the program. And she says she feels the letter, crafted as carefully as it was, came from that 1/8. Not outside. So it's not, as I hear people say, the other side trying to sow discord within the Labour Party. She says no, she doesn't think so. She thinks it's one of them who would have broken ranks and tried to stir the pot. So Central Clarendon appears to be settled, and it seems as if it's only a mere formality from here for the selection committee of the Labour Party to say yes to Delroy Williams, and then for the Central Executive, the second highest decision-making body outside of the annual conference, to rubber stamp Delroy Williams and say go forward and seek to replace Mike Henry in Central Clarendon. And with that, just like that, it's all the time we have. So I want to say thanks to the production team and say thanks to you for watching. God's willing, we'll be back. We'll be back. It's tied up there. You know what this is? We'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back on Friday.
It's Friday, March 7, 2025. This is CVM News at noon. I'm Ramon Gordon. The Jamaican night sky lit up late Thursday, not from stars or the moon, but from fiery debris plummeting from space. A SpaceX rocket exploded mid-flight during a test launch from Texas, sending fragments crashing down into the Caribbean, with some spotted right here in Jamaica. The 400-foot Starship had blasted off around 6:30 p.m., but just over 8 minutes in, disaster struck. Engines cut out, the rocket spun out of control, and then total blackout. Videos flooding social media show burning wreckage streaking across the sky. SpaceX later confirmed the rocket broke apart mid-air. This marks yet another setback for tech billionaire Elon Musk, raising fresh concerns about the safety of SpaceX's push toward commercial space travel. And the Court of Appeal has overturned the conviction of Dante Brooks, son of dancehall artist Movado, alongside his co-accused Andre Hines. The two men, who were previously convicted for murder in 2018, both sentenced to life in prison. On Friday, the matter was quashed and the men were freed. Now, tension is brewing in the Jamaica Labour Party's Clarendon Central Division after a letter alleged that influential Mapen business figures are backing Mayor Joel Williams over the party's official standard-bearer Delroy Williams. Speaking on CVM's lead story, Councillor Caretaker Loreen Green Mason expressed frustration over the letter's intent, questioning its motive and impact on party unity.
And I'm very offended at the construction of such a letter with my name affixed to it that has no truth bearing that I am in support of Councillor His Worship Joel Williams as the candidate to be representing the Jamaica Labour Party in the upcoming general elections. The candidate in the person of former Senator Delroy Williams, I have made it extremely clear on all fronts, and have always been on the road with Mr. Delroy Williams, supporting his bid to become the next Member of Parliament for Central Clarendon. So I am appalled.
Leader Mark Golding says Jamaica's economic model needs a complete reset. Speaking at a PNP forum last evening, he criticized the country's sluggish GDP growth and a workforce still struggling with high levels of unskilled labor despite record low unemployment. Golding argues that without major structural changes, economic stagnation will continue.
We have to completely re-engineer our growth model, starting with energy, which is really the key element to a more productive economy. Food security is going to be critical in the era that we're in and what is coming at us. The recent reports of the FAO indicate that 55% of Jamaicans are facing moderate to severe food insecurity, meaning that they are unable to have a balanced and nutritious diet, and many of them are underfed. We have to deal with that situation.
The National Water Commission is set to receive $10 billion as part of government support for public bodies. Water Minister Matthew Samuda says the funds will be used for major rehabilitation projects across the island, aimed at improving water supply and infrastructure.
This will facilitate the implementation of public investment projects such as the Greater Mandeville Water Supply Improvement Program, the major potable water transmission main improvement, as well as major water treatment plant rehabilitation and upgrading. Additionally, an allocation of $4.57 billion has been provided to treat with restoration and maintenance of major corridors and gullies, including the NMIA roundabout to Mountain View Avenue, Papine to Halfway Tree, 6 miles to Darling Street, and Sandy Gully, North Gully, and South Gully.
The Cabinet has approved water trucking activities across the country. An immediate relief of $2 million has also been approved for constituencies hardest hit by drought.
150 tanks of varying sizes from 400 gallons to 1,000 gallons will be made available to each member of this House for distribution within their constituencies. And the constituencies which have had the worst impact so far from the drought, which are the 5% of NWC systems which are currently going through regulation, will receive an immediate allocation of $2 million of trucking per member of parliament, where the parish councils will manage the payment of these bills. These letters will be made available to you this afternoon.
The Integrity Commission will receive an extra $164 million in the 2025-2026 budget, but MP Everald Warmington isn't pleased. During Thursday's Standing Finance Committee meeting, he doubled down on calls for a compliance audit of the anti-corruption body, questioning its financial management. His demand adds to ongoing scrutiny of the Commission as budget debates continue. Here's Courtney Lewis.
It's another question of integrity as MP Everald Warmington maintains he can't support any budgetary reallocations for the Integrity Commission IC until an audit report is tabled in the House of Parliament.
I see that this year the amount to the Integrity Commission is increased by $164 million, but yet I have not seen any auditing of that department or a financial report from the department. This year they're getting almost $2 billion, and that's taxpayer money, and there must be accountability.
It isn't his first call, as in October 2024, the member demanded a full audit of the IC's finances. He claims a presentation of financial statements is simply inadequate.
They mentioned that in their report they have financial what have you. What they have, there was just financial statement, and that's not what is required. It's required that all agency department statute and whatever you have audited report laid in this House. And I stated then that I cannot support any more funds being made available to this commission without some accountability. And I'm maintaining my position today.
But Finance Minister Favour Williams refutes that responsibility, referring the matter to the IC's Oversight Committee.
I do not have the information about where they are in terms of their financial audit. This is something I could inquire into, but again, my understanding is that those matters would go through the IC committee for them to interrogate and address.
She also remained mum on the details of the IC's latest audit report.
What we do know is that an audit was being pursued, and what we do know is that there have been allocations in budgets to provide for financial management and accounting services. As to exactly where that audit is, that is not information that I have at this moment.
Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
The opposition is demanding more resources for the transport sector, arguing that key areas remain unaddressed. Opposition spokesperson on transport, Michael Phillips, says while the government is improving public transport routes, it's neglecting a major issue: parking. Phillips insists that without proper parking solutions, commuters and operators will continue to face challenges.
Again, we ask the question, what is the national plan for transport? The minister is walking around making promises, planning, but there's no plan. You know, the train that would run to Linstead, if you look in the budget for this financial year coming, 24, 25, 26, there's no operating costs for the trains. So the question is, will the trains continue to run, or are we going to continue subsidizing it by $10 million a month, that has been stated by the Ministry of Transport? So we want to know what is the plan for transport. In the Papine area, the main problems that the operators have, and the police themselves, is the lack of parking for the operators, route taxes, and the hackney carriage operators themselves.
Chief Pharmacist and COO of Horton's Pharmacy, Safford Horton, was recently honored for his contribution to his family's 105-year-old legacy and the wider pharmaceutical industry. Despite challenges in securing essential drugs, he believes the local sector remains resilient.
The current challenges have been caused by the COVID epidemic several years ago, which has caused shortages, and there's a supply problem with a few pharmaceuticals which are difficult to get. Also, the war in the Ukraine with Russia and the Ukraine has disrupted a lot of the transportation worldwide, and that also contributes to some of the shortages of supplies being available. But the distributors in Jamaica who supply pharmaceuticals to the industry are aggressive people, and they are doing their best to make sure supplies of the best medications continue to be available at competitive prices to all our population.
And with that, we take a break. More when we return.
It's Reach! Introducing the Mother's Rewards app. The same mother's food you love, now at your fingertips. Sign up easy and get a free patty. Earn points whenever you visit any select Mother's location and redeem those same points for discounts later on. Order your favorites for pickup or delivery. No long lines. Plus, spin daily to win prizes and discounts. Yes, daily chances to win. No need for say nothing more. Download the Mother's Rewards app now. Mothers, loving every bite.
Surprise! I have your favorite. Come, hurry. Quick. Hey! How you doing?
Babe, I'm a pure ginger beer. What do you mean? Boss, me only come here for one thing.
No!
After all them years, you give me pure ginger beer.
Sports should be fun. Sports should be interesting. Sports should be entertaining. Sports should be riveting. This is CVM Sports. I'm Jordan Flint.
Welcome back. It's time for our discussion segment. The Education Ministry has announced a new special education policy set to be implemented this year, aimed at improving inclusivity and learning for children with disabilities. A key focus area of the policy will be strengthening teacher training to better support students with special needs. Joining us to discuss the significance of this policy and its potential impact on Jamaica's education system is President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Mark Smith. Mr. President, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to join you.
Great. From the teacher's perspective, how significant a move is this for Jamaica's education system, and what are the benefits do you see for both students with special needs and the wider school community? Let's start there.
Well, I think it's an extraordinary and long overdue opportunity for us to finally have a totally inclusive system, because there are too many children with education system that is not properly served by the sector. I often like to characterize it that we often teach to the children in the center. So those that require special needs support or those that are exceptionalities within the system are often underserved. And so there needs to be a lot more done in this regard. And we have to first start by putting in place the requisite policy framework that will support it. It's not enough for us to have a Disabilities Act. We need to have a Special Education Act. And so the pronouncements from the minister are welcomed.
Very well, sir. How will integrating students with special needs into mainstream classrooms affect teachers, especially those who may not be fully trained in, special education?
Well, it is the best practice in those countries that have, really moved towards a more inclusive model of education. That being said, we need to, first of all, clearly understand what this means. There are students who can be basically where they are on the spectrum, they can be incorporated into the regular classroom. There are some that, due to the extent of their disability or the special needs requirement, cannot be assimilated into a regular classroom. What is also important for us to understand is there are several, children that we have within the system that are somewhere on the spectrum, but they're not identified. And in fact, that is another thing that we need to fully understand, that our present systems of evaluating children are totally unequipped, or the infrastructure we have is totally unequipped to properly process these children. So we tend to find that we're not taking the opportunity to evaluate them quick enough and get the information to the teachers so that the interventions can be done.
Right, Doc. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching CVM News at Noon and we're talking education. We'll be right back.
The Time is brought to you by Ford Territory.
Welcome back. You're watching CVM News at Noon and we're talking inclusive education policy with JTA President Mark Smith. Now, so Smith, what challenges do you foresee for teachers in implementing this policy, and what kind of support do you think they will need to ensure it goes off without a hitch?
Well, let me first of all start by saying the whole matter of education is a shared responsibility that we have. And while teachers do bear a part of responsibility, we must create an entire coalition of various members, including the parents, that are critical stakeholders in this process, as well as, we want public-private partnerships to help for integration. I don't want to jump the gun because we are not yet privy to the particulars of the policy, but we welcome the engagement. At the end of it, we must understand that at the heart of all of this lies a commitment to inclusivity and equal opportunity for all Jamaicans, not just those that fall within what we consider the typical or average range.
To that end, Professor, you had said earlier that there should be greater legislative efforts for inclusion in the classroom, yes? Speak to me a little about what would you like that to look like? What do you want that to look like?
All right, so once we move towards having a Special Education Act, it then calls for us to not only, it becomes a law, and as a result of that, we are forced to put in budgetary support. You don't have a key. When you just have a policy, you can put a policy out there, but there's no budgetary support for the policy, and as a result of that, we have significant challenges. A failure to support the Act with funding then puts significant pressure on those process owners to execute. And that becomes very important. So there's this push to get things done, and there will be the money to do it, because with the best of intentions, without the resources, as one famous Jamaican once said, it takes cash to care.
Right. Mr. President, a lot is happening in education. We'll likely have you back on real soon. You're becoming a familiar face. That was Mark Smith, President of the Jamaica's Teachers Association, joining us, talking to us about inclusive education. Moving on now to international news, U.S. President Donald Trump says he is strongly considering large-scale sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and peace arrangement is reached. More from the BBC.
Some breaking news that's just been coming in the last few seconds from President Donald Trump, who is threatening new sanctions and tariffs on Russia over its latest bombardment of Ukraine. We've seen missile and drone attacks on Ukraine. President Trump is pretty clearly angry about that, and on Truth Social he has said, based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached. To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now, says Donald Trump, before it is too late. Thank you. So interesting that the president, who's been accused of really siding with Russia, siding with the Russian leader Vladimir Putin, and having that row with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office in the White House, now really turning his rhetoric and fire on Russia and threatening them with more sanctions, increased sanctions and tariffs if they don't stop pounding Ukraine, as President Donald Trump has put it. We'll see what happens with that.